Alan Berkson. I am the Global Director of Community Outreach and Analyst Relations for Freshworks, and we're having some conversations around business continuity, digital transformation, and how organizations, including Freshworks, are dealing with the current crisis. I'm joined today by our CIO, the Freshworks CIO, Prasad Ramakrishnan. Welcome, Prasad.
Thank you, Alan. Hi, everyone. How are you all doing?
I just want to point out that there are other videos in the series. Please check them out. Today, we're going to talk about digital transformation, a buzzword that if I went to 100 IT execs, I'm sure I'd get 150 different answers. Right, Prasad? Yeah. So, in my mind, digital transformation, whenever you talk about anything, it's people, processes, and tools. I think that you have to add to it that it's really about agility and adaptability to a certain extent. So when you think about digital transformation, and particularly as it relates to Freshworks, why don't you talk about just what you think about and perhaps maybe what some other organizations think about?
Yeah, and I think that's the great topic du jour for us, right? Most people think digital transformation is all about technology, and partly I think it's because of the word digital in front of digital transformation. So most people think it's got only to do with computers or computerization of all of the services. But like you rightly pointed out, digital transformation is about the people, the processes, and the technology all aligning to take the company to the next level, right? So let's look at it from a people angle, right? If the company doesn't have a culture from a digital transformation perspective, if they are not committed to a digital journey for achieving what they want to achieve, what the outcomes they want to achieve, then what you're going to have is you're going to have the company leadership go in one direction and the technology go in a different direction. And you're going to have a lot of false starts and a lot of reinvestment that you end up doing. One is alignment from the top, and alignment from a company culture perspective is extremely critical as you define your digital transformation initiatives, right? Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say one. If you want a litmus test for how well your organization is from a people perspective, did people panic during this particular crisis that we're going through? I mean, almost every company in the world is currently going through some business continuity. They're executing the business continuity plan, and the question is, how well did your people respond to it? I'm not talking about the IT people, because that's just, you kind of expect them to do it because they know what they're supposed to do. But how well do your entire organization respond to it?
Yep, and that's a great point, right? And it comes back to the culture of the company, right? Is it something that's permeating it's permeating the blood of every single employee in the company? Are they committed to the tenets of digital transformation, right? Are they able to now work in different modes of operation? Because when you talk about digital transformation, it's not a one size fits all. And it's not like one cookbook of do these 7 things and you can claim that you're digitally transformed. No, it's a journey, right? And companies need to make sure that they constantly keep their employees in mind in terms of, are they able to adapt to today's normal, and are they able to adapt to the new normal, right? And that's where it comes back to culture, right?
And so so we got people, we got processes.
Yeah. So I think from a processes perspective, right? Remember, at the end of the day, technology is more an enabler for people as well as for the processes, right? If you take an example, and the term I like to use for that is a term which I call metrics that matter, right? Most of the systems that you interact with are systems where you collect a lot of information. You go and collect information about payables transactions, you collect information about HR, you go and, if you look at the sales rep, they're entering information about the deals that they're working on. If you go to the marketing department, they're entering information about the leads that they're generating from the various events, qualifying the leads, scoring the leads, and all that. At the end of the day, the reason for doing all of these, what I call transactions, is to get insights into how the business is doing, right? Which is where metrics come in, right? When senior management looks at how the company is performing, they look at how many leads did I generate this week versus last week. They're not interested in the specifics of, did Prasad come in as a lead or did Alan come in as a lead? Right. They're interested in numbers. They're interested in trends. They're looking at patterns so that they can know whether the business is doing well, right? Now, the reason I use the term metrics that matter is what you see is most people having what I call the bad habit of having excessive metrics, where they would like to see reams and reams of paper at their desk first thing in the morning when they come into the office. First of all, they cannot read all those reams of paper, or they would love to see a bunch of emails in their inbox giving them metrics of how the business is going. But think about it. You are going to be able to only focus on 3 or 4 of these metrics, not hundreds of these metrics, right? It again comes back to the culture of the company. When you're talking about digital transformation, you want to make sure that your processes are also aligned. The way you look at metrics, the way you measure how the business is doing, the way you tweak a particular process to go this way versus that way should be also be based on looking at the right type of metrics, right?
So is that also about adjusting your metrics? I can't imagine that any organization has the same metrics today that they had 6 months ago. And
right, and I would even say it's not just about the organization having the same metrics. It's and I think Peter Drucker said it, right? You get what you measure, right? Metrics should be used and measures should be used to look at how the business is doing and what transformation you want to make from a business perspective. What are you trying to influence? If I come and tell you, Alan, that I'm only going to measure you on the number of leads that you bring in, right? All you will do is just bring the leads and not focus on quality leads. If I just measure you in terms of how many tickets you're closing, you'll just go and say, bang, 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 let me go close these tickets. Right. Whereas if the measure would have been how many have you closed to the customer satisfaction, then you're making it into a positive outcome rather than just making you click on the tickets and close it when the issue may not have been resolved, right? So it may lead to bad behavior if it is not used properly.
So let's talk about communication. A digital native today is probably communicating on, 8 to 10, maybe a dozen different channels, just from a consumer point of view. How does that impact organizations in terms of how they agility and adaptability for communications, particularly now? Right now we are people are communicating through chat channels, video channels, phone channels. There's a whole lot more that is probably required to do their jobs in a remote organization. And that's part of being able to be adaptable or have that agility.
Yeah. And by the way, Alan, I can hear your daughter singing in the background. It's so wonderful in this BCP mode. The fact that you're able to continue your business, your daughter is able to continue singing.
Remote learning, yeah.
It's remote learning, right? And that's the reality that we're living in. Right?
I guess that's adaptable. I mean, our standards change, right?
Exactly, and this is a new normal, right? In the previous mode, it would have been just you working from home. You would have the privacy of your home to be able to do the calls. But now, like in my case, it's me, my daughter, my wife, my son. They're all in their own business calls or in their own school calls, right? So I think that's where the one is the adaptability of the technology, right? Adaptability from a person perspective, from the people perspective, where are you able to adjust to this new normal? Are you able to adapt and make sure that you're setting the boundaries around which you're able to operate and be more successful with your stakeholders, with your partners, with your employees, with your customers, and so on, right? So I think this is where the third aspect of digital transformation, we covered the people in the process. Technology plays a very critical role, right? As a company, enabling technologies which enable business collaboration is something which is purely in the hands of the company, right? And I think that's where, as Freshworks, we have done a phenomenal job, right? If you look at it, we have multiple modes by which we enable communication among our employees. We have our world-class ITSM product, using which employees can just send an email and the ticket gets routed to the appropriate person, whether they be in finance or HR or travel or IT or legal, it gets routed to the appropriate person. We have enabled video conferencing so that people can, without friction, talk to their colleagues and do collaborative sessions and video sharing sessions. In fact, a funny, I wouldn't say funny, but an important statistic here is when we did our company all hands just last week, we had close to 2,400 people all collaborating and available on the session at the same time.
Across a lot of time zones.
Across a lot of time zones, right? So this comes back to, one, is the company ready to do it? And two, are the employees ready to accept it and thrive in that type of environment, right? So all these three things are interconnected. And if you don't,
Yeah, I think the winners or losers are going to be chosen that way. One topic I want to get in with you, because this is something that I've always considered. You know, my background is IT too. There's the business continuity is a we're failing over, but then there's another aspect of it, which is resilience. I go back to when I was a DBA. You know, if you have two servers and one failed, then you have another one you're still running. You know, that you don't have to fail over. There's no business continuity. It's just redundancy, resilience. But a perfect example I use of this, this goes back a while. My first day at Freshworks, it was June of 2013, and I'm sitting in our CEO's office in Chennai, and the power goes out. And back then it was pretty common for the power to go out. Nobody blinked. Nobody blinked. And I thought about it for a second, and I said, you know, how do you keep? The only thing that was there was the router. So the internet connection was on a UPS. Everybody else had laptops. So they kept working, and then the power came back on. And it happened 2 or 3 times that day. Nobody blinked. That's resiliency. Having, you know, if you had a desktop, you'd have to have a UPS on everyone, or you'd have to make sure, you know, I mean, just as an example, that to me was striking. Can you talk a little bit about just, you know, the idea of building resiliency, which could probably help you offset some of the pain of business continuity?
Yeah, and I think that's a great example, Alan, right? Think about it. And the reason why nobody blinked when the power went out is, one, like you rightly pointed out, everybody had a computing device which could go for 4 to 8 to 12 hours, depending on the model of laptop that they had. But then behind the scenes, right, to your point, enabling and making sure that the services that they need access to were not on-prem solutions, right? The solutions that people needed to access to continue doing their work was not dependent on a heavy set of servers.
There was no
storage.
local file server. There was no local app server or database server. Yeah.
Exactly, right. So which meant from a strategy perspective, being cloud first and SaaS first enabled us to continue the services as long as you have the routers, and we had sufficient backups, primary and secondary backups, which could go for 12 to 14 hours if needed, right, where the UPS could still be running. Right, because being a product company, we have the best possible infrastructure to enable us to be productive as employees and us to be productive for our customers. So we have built in multiple fail-safe mechanisms here where business can still continue. Right, and to your example,
yeah, go ahead. You go ahead.
No, but I'm saying to extend your example, right? Assume that you are not in a meeting with the CEO in the office and you were at home. The power cut situation at home is worse than the power cut situation in the office, because offices have generators which kick in after a few minutes of the power going out. The reality is people continue to work even from home, even though there is a power cut. The reason being the infrastructure that we have and the way we have set up things where you're not dependent on a single point of failure has enables that. So think.
Yeah, so no, that's great advice and great insight. You know, as we think about our business continuity plans, I'm sure that everybody at some point in the next 6 months will be updating their business continuity plans as they also try to come out of their business continuity, whatever that means. And maybe that's a whole topic for another session. But also, what kind of resiliency can we build into our organization from a people point of view, from a process point of view, from a tools point of view, so that the impact of a disaster, of a crisis is less so, and that we don't necessarily have to have a new normal or change things too much.
Yeah, so I think what I would say is employee communication and employee training is key to building resiliency, right? Now, when you came in to visit the office, the people in the office already know that if there's a power cut, I'm going to continue working. But you would have had a aha moment at that time, right? In terms of how do I handle this? But now the fact that you are able to see things in action and using the employee's experience to amplify that and make it known to the rest of the company, right, is one way by which you can make sure that people are aware of this. So I would say training and communication and amplifying of our infrastructure and our approach to resiliency goes a long way. Second, doing what we call as tabletop exercises, right? Companies like Netflix, they do this thing called Chaos Game Days. And then we use these terms called tabletop exercises. This is basically it's basically all about building muscle memory, right? When you have a disaster, that's not the time for you to say, hey, do I have all my backups? Do I have all my primary and secondary? That's not the time to look at that, right? When a disaster strikes and you need to have decisions made by top management, you should have run through a couple of these tabletop exercises where you bring everybody into a room and say, Girish, we just learned that there is an 8.0 earthquake in blah, blah, blah region. It's affected as this. What is going to be a reaction? Have them respond, right? And then say, okay, are they prepared? Right? So this kind of gives everybody the muscle memory so that when such a situation happens, you know exactly what you need to do. Right. And do it with your teams, do it with your sub-functions. That builds resiliency.
Yeah,
right?
you know, it's like insurance. Nobody really likes to have it and they don't want to spend the money on it, but at the same time, what's the cost of not doing it? And, you know, I can't, in our global environment, so we no longer are just, you know, local, even small businesses, they're not local. I think that the likelihood of impact is much greater. And so, you know, going through these exercises, I think is really important. Prasad, thank you so much for your insights today. We've been having conversations around business continuity, digital transformation, and how organizations are responding to the current crisis. Please check out the other videos in the series and join us for more conversations on this topic. Thanks, Prasad.
Thank you, Alan. Have a great day.
Prasad, thank you so much for your insights today. We've been having conversations around business continuity, digital transformation, and how organizations are responding to the current crisis. Please check out the other videos in the series and join us for more conversations on this topic. Thanks, Prasad.